Hey, today we are going to talk about the 4 biggest muscle building mistakes, and you may be making them when it comes to adding muscle, and it could be killing your gains in your 50s. Hang on, we'll be right back. Hey everybody, it's BJ.
And Ruth.
And we're back talking all things health and fitness. Thank you for joining us today. And we have a great episode ahead. If you haven't, please take a minute and subscribe to the channel and like the video. And stay with us right to the end, because we are talking about 4 things that if you're doing these, you're killing your gains and your muscle gains in your 50s. And you know, I'm gonna let you in on something. The fourth one was actually probably my biggest mistake when I turned 50. So stay right till the end for that. But let's get going, and we're going to start with number 1, which is
not training hard enough.
Not training hard enough.
You think you are, but you're not.
Yeah. So here's the thing: when we turn 30, every decade thereafter, you are losing, or we are all losing, 3 to 8% of our muscle mass.
Yeah.
Okay. Unless you do something about it, right? Which is resistance training and exercise and everything. And running and all of the cardio work is great, but resistance training is vital. You cannot add muscle or keep muscle without some kind of resistance training, whether it's body weight exercises, whether it's like with actual weights, or maybe there's plyometric work, things like that. There has to be some kind of resistance involved for your muscles to exert themselves. Okay. So now when we're talking about not training hard enough, I guess that's the question. What is training hard enough? Right?
Yeah, because a lot of people think, you know what, okay, obviously in your 50s, you're not going to train like you did in your 20s and 30s or even 40s, but be mindful of your body's older. You want to be free of injury. Yeah. But a lot of people then take that to the extreme, and then they don't even push themselves hard enough anymore.
Yeah, and a lot of what happens as we age, it's our joints that we have to be more aware of versus, maybe the weight is not as much because we want to go easier on our joints.
Yeah.
But so here's the thing. When we talk about training hard enough, you need to get realistically, for a set to be effective, you need to get somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 3 reps or less in reserve.
Yeah.
Right? So that means you're training hard enough that you could maybe squeeze out 2 more, 3 more with the weight that you're using on the exercise that you're doing, or you go right to failure. And we did a whole episode on training to failure and versus training to the reps in reserve, and there's pros and cons to each that, I'll put it in the description and you can check that one out. But the point is, if we just go to the gym and kind of mail it in, your body's not going to respond.
No, if you do what you always did and expect it to change, it's not gonna do that. But I think it's also being mindful of being more aware of your body. If you're having a day that maybe you didn't get a good night's sleep, maybe you're lower in your water, then if your body is telling you at the end of that set, you only could squeeze out a couple more, that was effective. It doesn't matter what the weight was. We get so hung up on numbers that
I think it's just what you said. It's the exertion that is required by you to do the exercise. And I think for some people, they don't know what that exertion feels like.
No.
Because they've never gone to that point,
there.
right?
Yeah.
I'm teaching my daughter, the training principles and things like that. And so she was doing goblet squats last week when working out, and it was at considerably heavier weight than the last one she used. And she was like, "Oh, this is heavy." Like, well, it's supposed to be heavy.
Yeah.
You're here, and she's doing her squats, and she's like, "This is getting hard." I was like, "Your form is excellent. This is what we're here for. This is what we're talking about, right?"
And a lot of people don't push themselves there.
Yeah. So super important that we make sure we do that. Okay. Number 2, it might sound a little bit like an oxymoron, but number 2 is training too heavy. Mm-hmm. And now let me qualify that. Training too heavy and sacrificing form.
Because form is what keeps you safe.
Yeah.
When you're in good, proper form, your risk of getting injured is less.
Yeah.
So if you're going to just use swing and momentum to get the weight up there, you're probably going to come out of your form. You're running a higher risk of injury.
Yeah, 100%. And remember, it's weightlifting. It's not
Not weight
weight
throwing,
right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I've seen people do it all the time. If it's not about how heavy is that weight when you can swing it up.
Yeah.
You want to lift it up. You want to use the muscle to get it up there.
Yeah, 100%. And in that, we want to be in a rep range weight-wise that's, depending on the exercise, there's some research that says you can go as high as 25 reps. There's some that says, 8 to 12 reps. Ideally, you just want to get to that 2 to 3 reps in reserve. You want to get to that level of exertion with whatever weight you're using. It needs to be over 8 reps. Okay, if you're under 8 reps, we just did an episode talking about powerlifting and strength training versus hypertrophy. So if we want muscle to grow and respond, our rep ranges, generally speaking, 8 to 12, maybe 8 to 15, maybe even 8 to 25. Some people do higher reps. Their body responds better. Maybe their joints are better with it, or whatever the case might be. I know I did at one point some calf work where I went with higher reps, and it was just a good change for my calves. Right, but you can figure that out as you go. So that's number 2, is you sacrifice form, and usually with the sacrifice of form, eventually comes injury, like you said. Right?
Yeah.
It's kind of inevitable. So, and that's the thing. As we age, we might have gotten away with it in our 20s, because I know I got away with bad form in my 20s, doing certain exercises, and it wasn't that I didn't know how to have good form. I sacrificed form to lift more weight.
That's right.
Right?
But we really, with age comes wisdom.
Yeah.
Let's not be playing that game.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, number 3. This one's a good one. Number 3 mistake is skipping leg day. Right? I heard one comedian talking specifically about men as they age, and talking about, where they got the idea for Big Bird from. for those
bodybuilders, right?
Yeah, well, no, for men who don't train their legs.
Right.
Right? So anyway, the point is, we want to have a balanced physique.
A balanced physique, and I used to tell my training clients that if you're short on time and you can only get one workout in per week, leg day.
Yeah.
It's the biggest muscle group in the body. So obviously, if you're going to attack the biggest muscle group in your body, you're going to be most effective.
Yeah.
Do not skip leg day.
Yeah.
I'm old school bodybuilder, where at the start of my week, I start with legs. When I would be in competition and I want to target, I then take out one leg day and I do 2.
Right.
But don't miss it. Don't skip it.
Yeah,
it's the biggest muscle group.
And here's the thing with legs. It's all about stability. It's your core and your stability, because these are things that can get affected. Well, not can. They will potentially be affected as we age if we aren't doing something about it. So the importance of leg day in that context can't really be overstated, I think, where it's going to help us getting out of chairs. It's going to help us sitting up, or it's going to help us lying down and getting up. I know some people have a challenge when they lie down getting out of bed without rolling over because of their core and their legs. So these are the things that, making sure you're doing the lower body training is going to help. Here's one that's a really good one. I'm going to just read this. I took this right off of a study. Working legs helps to produce hormones such as cortisol, testosterone, and human growth hormone. So there's a whole lot of response that your body will have from solid leg training that's going to result in just your body responding with, again, just like I read, more testosterone release and human growth hormone. And here's the thing, you might say, well, wait, you said cortisol. Cortisol is not bad. Elevated cortisol over the long term is bad, okay? But in short bursts, there's a reason for it. It's for exertion, right? It's so that you have the burst of cortisol so you can decide to fight the lion or run or freeze, and then the cortisol goes away.
Yeah.
And we've talked about the big challenge in our society today is we don't turn off the cortisol, because a lot of it has to do with being connected to our phones and constant, information and constant stress coming our way. So, okay, number 4, and this one was my biggest one when I turned 50. So to put that in perspective, I was still training, maybe not super a lot like I am now, but I was still training and, thought I was in decent shape, thought I was putting in good time at the gym, and I was doing, my lifts were good and all of those things, but it was my nutrition that got off track. And, we talk about it all the time. You cannot out-train a bad diet. Right? So you remember we did that episode where we reviewed, I forget his name, but about 7 years ago, he did the 10,000 calorie challenge. He consumed 10,000 calories in one day, which was a ridiculous amount of food. And then he tried to burn it the next day. And he worked out or did something from basically first thing in the morning till the end of the day. And it was full. Yeah, I remember when he's talking at the end, he's like, this has been the worst day of my life. And all he did that whole day was train and exercise. And he only managed to burn 7,700 calories. So you cannot out-train a bad diet. No. And so the important parts of that is making sure that you're getting enough protein. And we always say, it's 1 gram of protein per pound of lean body weight that you have. That's the good rule of thumb, because if we're not putting enough protein in, our body's not going to respond by putting on more muscle. And depends on, you may say, well, I don't want to be a bodybuilder or a natural bodybuilder or anything like that, but we still need to be adding muscle, maintaining the muscle that we have, and that comes from the training. The response our body has is to respond with the protein that we put in it.
Use it or lose it. So if you're not going to use it, then don't complain when you can't get up the stairs and you can't pick up a box and you can't go hiking with your kids and your dog.
Yeah. Right. So the importance of protein is also that we need to time the protein. So if let's say you pick the number. Let's say you're consuming, 200 grams of protein in a day. You need to split that up. This research shows it goes best over 4 to 5 meals in equal chunks. And because your body doesn't store protein, our body needs that we all know our body stores fat, right? We all know our body stores carbs. Sometimes it's glycogen, sometimes it's fat. But protein has to be constantly put into our systems. So those are the 4 things. So what's the takeaway? I think the takeaway is in your 50s especially, and I speak for myself because I'm 55. Ruth is older than me.
Not by much.
But older nonetheless. But the point is creating a sustainable plan. I think you have to figure out, where, and based on your time commitments and everything else, you need to decide it's important. My health is important. It's important for my family. It's important. Maybe it's important for your partner. It's important for your husband or wife. It's important for your kids, for your grandkids, that you're taking care and making yourself a priority and taking care of yourself. So you need to create some kind of sustainable plan. From a nutrition point of view, from a gym time point of view, from understanding what you're doing when you go to the gym. And that's why there are channels like ours that give you some information. A recommendation I would have is consider a coach, whether it's a coach that handles your nutrition or a coach that handles your training. But I have a coach who takes care of my training, and it's been really, not my training, my nutrition, and it's been invaluable to have him engaged with me. And we're 4 years in now, so we have a good relationship and a good understanding of how my body responds and things like that. And that was one of the things that when I turned 50 got me off of the nutrition, and the thing was, here's the thing, I didn't think I was that off in my nutrition, but when I look back, it was horrendous.
Well, a lot of times we learn from the errors that we make. I have a different history where I had a coach who didn't serve me well because didn't take the time to actually know me. So I took the time to actually research and do all my own stuff. And I'm an expert in me. I know what my body does. But it was a lot of learning and what amino acids do, and what macros are, and what nutrients are, and timing, and all of this and that, and how it would affect my training. But what a lot of people, if you have questions and you don't know where to get the answers, then seek out the advice of someone who does.
Yeah, 100%. So I would leave you with this. Take some time and just evaluate your own, what's my nutrition plan look like? What's my training plan look like? How's my form at the gym? And make the changes where necessary. And you might say, hey, I'm rocking it. Then great. Let's just take it and run with it. And let's live our best lives. Because remember, age is just a number. Thank you for joining us today. If you haven't, please give us a like and a subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.